Welcome back. I'm still here with Congressman Jack Bergman, and we're going to talk a little bit about the town hall meetings that he's held in both Escanaba and Gaylord. Thanks for being with us, Congressman.
Hey, it's great to still be here.
Wonderful. So just last night you were in Gaylord.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how that town hall meeting went.
Well, I tell you what, let's start, if you don't mind. I'd like to talk, can I talk about Escanaba first?
Well, it happened first, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, first of all, we scheduled these town halls. These are our first big mega town halls where we're just open attendance, so we got the biggest venues we could find to accommodate anybody who wanted to come. And because of the size of the district, we picked a central point in the Upper Peninsula and a central point, below the bridge, so that people, if you were from Alpena, you could get to Gaylord just as easy as the people from Traverse City.
That's true.
Could get to Gaylord, and the same thing. So we held it, first one in Escanaba, filled up the place. It was at Badenoch College, and we had actually overflow, so we had a big flat screen with people in another room that we had, good contact with. But the crowd was great. They were full of energy. They were full of questions, both somewhat controversial questions, but yet some very, very, bipartisan questions that really reflected the betterment of, help everybody. So the Gaylord, the Escanaba event was moderated by the president of the college, and we had great interaction. There was a few, maybe moments where there was a few cat calls and whatever, but mostly respectful, mostly, they're focusing on getting their questions answered by me. And if someone asks me a question and I don't know an answer, I don't make one up. But if you ask me a question that I do know, I'm going to give you an honest answer, not one just to have you agree with me. And
what questions did you hear most frequently from the crowd?
Well, people wanted to know, they wanted to know about Great Lakes, restoration issue. They wanted to know about essential air services. They wanted to know about Meals on Wheels. They wanted to know about, funding for the endowment of the arts and education. They wanted to know about health care. Those were the primary questions. They had questions about national security and that sort of thing. So the questions at both town hall meetings fell within the same range.
And one topic that we haven't discussed yet that I'd like to touch on is the Affordable Care Act. I'm sure you heard a lot of questions about people's concerns that if it's repealed, what will come next? So what would you like to see if that were to happen?
Well, first of all, it's going to happen.
Okay,
because of the fact that now we're seeing, well, the Affordable Care Act might have been a really good starting idea from a broad perspective. We see now that it is failing across the country in many different ways. Have there been some successes? Absolutely. Is it the right thing to keep pre-existing conditions for people? Absolutely. Is it the right thing to allow people to keep their young, children on their policies until the age of 26? Absolutely. But if you cannot get insurance, even if you have insurance, if you cannot get health care provided and the providers aren't getting paid, and that the economics should never overshadow the quality of the care, but it's a balance of providing both, something you can afford. So going forward, we know that we're going to have to change the Affordable Care Act. And unfortunately, it's collapsed to the point where to repair it is not really possible. But people who have gotten insurance and have gotten health care through that change, there's going to be an alternative form, if you will, a different form, so they're not going to lose their health care.
That was one concern that I've heard, is that I think the number was 2 million Michiganders, if it's repealed, will lose their health care. So you're saying there is an equitable and there is an affordable option for them.
Well, yes, and it's going to probably look different because, for example, the Affordable Care Act was based upon the federal government running everything, pretty much. The states have the best options and the best understanding of what's good they're going to need. Whether Michigan might do it one way, Florida might do it a different way. So I believe that what you're going to see with the American Health Care Act, as it's being called now, as it finally shapes up, is going to push down more responsibilities and therefore capabilities to the states to run the health care that they know will work best for their state.
Do you think that the states are prepared to take on that responsibility?
I'd say most are, and if they're not, I guess that's the governor's responsibility to get their act together. Because if this country was 13 colonies which became states that founded the federal government, not vice versa. And sometimes we forget the fact that the power that the states were entrusted with by our founders, and we need to make sure that the federal government gets out of the business of usurping that power and let the states run their show.
Excellent. Do you have planned more town halls in the future?
Well, we will do more town halls. Last night, if we could have had the response last night in Gaylord that we had in Escanaba, we would be probably planning, more quickly. But unfortunately, last night in Gaylord, there were folks there whose whole goal was to disrespect, and we got so many apologies from just people this morning saying, I'm embarrassed by the behavior last night because we couldn't have a dialogue in some cases because some of the people who came, they didn't really care about the subject.
Right.
They just wanted to disrupt it for everybody, and that was the sad part. But are we going to have more? Absolutely. The one thing that we didn't talk about is that at our freshman class, we signed a commitment to civility as a freshman class, bipartisan, that said, well, we will debate and argue a subject from very different positions. We're never going to attack each other as an individual, and that we're hopeful that more of our folks who come to the town halls will understand that civil discourse is what made our country what it is.
Wonderful. Speaking in terms of the rest of 2017, what are your plans in general? That's a big question, but
well,
try your best.
We've got this year, this legislative year, we added almost an extra month in Washington, D.C. to do the legislative business. So on the front end here, I've been spending more time in D.C. working as opposed to less time or more time, back here in the district. So now as we get closer to the summertime, we'll have a little more time where I can get back to the district. But it's a matter of, we work about 14 hours a day in Washington, D.C. And when I come back here, I probably work about 14 hours a day. And there's the only time I have off are the plane rides between Washington, D.C. and the district. And even then, depending on who I'm sitting next to, chances are it's going to be business as usual there, because someone's going to say, you're Congressman Bergman, aren't you? Yes, ma'am, I am.
Guilty.
Yeah, so what do you want to talk about? I'm just honored to serve. I'm excited about the possibilities that our country has. I've traveled all over the world, and we don't realize in some cases how good we have it here until we get a little bit outside of our borders. We've got a great country. It's got its challenges like anything else, absolutely. We've got a lot of great people on both sides of the aisle working to make it what it can be.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Congressman. It was an honor to have you here. That'll do it for today's Insights. Make sure to follow up with us next weekend.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.